Stories and Documentary Network. Welcome back to our channel. The Wolof Empire stands as one of the most significant pre-colonial states in West Africa, known for its central role in the history and development of the Senegambia region. Flourishing between the 14th and 16th centuries, the empire became a beacon of political power, economic influence, and cultural vibrancy. Situated in modern-day Senegal and parts of the Gambia, the Wolof Empire played a pivotal role in shaping the region's history through its advanced governance, thriving trade networks, and cultural contributions. The rise of the Wolof Empire coincided with the gradual decline of the Mali Empire and the rise of other West African states like Songhai. Its strategic location along the trans-Saharan and Atlantic trade routes allowed it to benefit from the flow of goods such as gold, salt, and slaves, while also acting as a cultural bridge between North Africa, the Sahel, and coastal West Africa. This geographical advantage, combined with a rich social and political structure, enabled the empire to assert its dominance and foster a unique blend of indigenous traditions and Islamic influences. The history of the Wolof Empire traces its roots to the Senegambia region, an area rich in cultural and political diversity. The region's early foundations were marked by migrations of various ethnic groups, including the Wolof, Serer, Mandinka, and others, who established settlements along the banks of the Senegal and Gambia rivers. The Wolof people, with their distinct language and cultural traditions, were among the most prominent in the area. The Wolof initially settled in the fertile regions near the Atlantic coast, where they engaged in agriculture, fishing, and trade. These early communities formed the foundation for what would later become the Wolof Empire. They were organized into various smaller polities, each ruled by local chiefs or kings known as Berba. These polities were distinct in their governance structures, but they shared a common language, cultural practices, and trade networks that helped establish the foundations for a unified empire. In the centuries leading up to the formation of the Wolof Empire, the region witnessed the rise of several kingdoms and chiefdoms, such as Jola, Walo, Kayer, Baol, and Sine, each contributing to the growing collective identity of the Wolof people. These early Wolof states, while independent, were closely linked through kinship ties, trade, and a shared cultural and religious heritage. Despite occasional conflicts and territorial disputes, these states often collaborated and maintained alliances, setting the stage for the eventual unification of the region under a single powerful ruler. The formation of the Wolof Empire was solidified by the leadership of Ndiadiane Ndiaye, a visionary and charismatic ruler who unified the fragmented Wolof polities into a centralized empire. Ndiadiane Ndiaye's rise to power is a significant turning point in the history of the Wolof people. He capitalized on internal divisions among the smaller Wolof states and external pressures from regional powers to consolidate power and form the Wolof Empire. Ndiadiane Ndiaye, often regarded as the founder of the Wolof Empire, was a skilled military leader and diplomat. His efforts to unite the various Wolof states were marked by a combination of military conquest and strategic alliances. By defeating rival chiefs and gaining the support of influential local elites, Ndiadiane was able to bring the diverse Wolof polities under a single banner. A key aspect of his unification process was the establishment of a centralized authority, where the emperor, or Borum, ruled over the entire empire, while local governors, known as Zybar, were appointed to oversee regional matters. This system allowed for greater political stability, coordination of resources, and a unified defense strategy, which further strengthened the Wolof Empire's position in West Africa. In addition to his military conquests, Ndiadiane Ndiaye is also credited with fostering a sense of Wolof identity, emphasizing shared cultural and religious practices. The introduction of Islam, which was already influential in the region due to contact with North African traders and scholars, played a significant role in uniting the people under a common belief system. The syncretism of traditional Wolof practices with Islamic principles helped reinforce a cohesive cultural identity that spanned the various regions of the empire. Before the unification of the Wolof states, the region was divided into several independent kingdoms, each with its own political system and social structure. These early Wolof polities, Jola, Walo, Kayer, Baol, and Sine, Each had distinct characteristics but shared common cultural, economic, and social ties. Jola. Located at the heart of the future empire, Jola was one of the most influential of the Wolof states. It was a center of trade and culture and served as a political powerhouse. The Jola kingdom's influence extended across much of the northern and central regions of modern-day Senegal. Its capital, which later became the capital of the unified Wolof Empire, was a bustling urban center. Wolo. Situated in the region now known as the western part of modern Senegal, Wolo was known for its strategic location along the Senegal River. Wolo played a significant role in regional trade, particularly in gold and salt. Kayer. To the south of Wolo, Kayer was a large kingdom with a strong military presence. Its strategic location between the coastal regions and the interior made it a key player in the trans-Saharan trade routes. Kayer's power was centered around its strong cavalry, and its leaders were instrumental in the expansion of Wolof influence in the region. Baol. Baol, located in the central part of modern Senegal, was a culturally vibrant kingdom known for its agricultural productivity. Its fertile lands were crucial for supporting the empire's growing population, making it an economic hub within the Wolof states. Sine. Situated in the southern region of the Wolof territories, Sine was an agricultural powerhouse and also served as a crucial point in trade routes connecting the interior to the coast. Its leaders, while smaller in influence compared to the other Wolof states, played an important role in the eventual unification under Ndiadiane Ndiaye. These early Wolof polities were primarily organized as kingdoms or chiefdoms, with each region governed by local rulers who exercised considerable autonomy. The emergence of centralized power under Ndiadiane Ndiaye, however, marked a significant shift. The integration of these various states into a cohesive empire allowed for greater coordination in governance, military defense, and economic planning. Ndiadiane's success in unifying these regions also led to the formation of a complex social structure, with a centralized imperial court, regional administrators, military commanders, and a system of tribute and taxation that supported the empire's growth. The Senegambia region, encompassing modern-day Senegal and the Gambia, served as the heartland of the Wolof Empire. This region's geography and environment were key to the success of the Wolof state, positioning it as both a fertile agricultural zone and a critical crossroads for trade. The fertile lands of Senegambia, coupled with its network of rivers, most notably the Senegal and Gambia rivers, provided both sustenance for its population and an essential transportation route for the movement of goods. The rivers played a crucial role in the development of the Wolof Empire, serving as natural highways for trade and communication, linking the interior of West Africa to the coast and facilitating the movement of goods to and from other parts of Africa, Europe, and the Americas. The region's proximity to the Atlantic Ocean further enhanced its strategic importance, as it enabled the Wolof Empire to engage in maritime trade with European and North African traders, contributing to the empire's economic prosperity. The Senegambia region also acted as a cultural and political crossroads. It was home to a variety of ethnic groups, including the Wolof, Serer, Mandinka, and others, each contributing to the region's complex social fabric. Additionally, its location placed it at the intersection of several major trans-Saharan trade routes, connecting West Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and even Europe. This strategic location not only facilitated trade but also allowed the Wolof to interact with other influential African states, such as the Mali and Songhai empires, as well as Islamic empires in North Africa. The economy of the Wolof Empire was largely based on agriculture, which flourished due to the fertile lands of Senegambia. The empire benefited from a favorable climate for the cultivation of staple crops like millet, sorghum, and rice, which were essential for sustaining the growing population. These grains were the backbone of Wolof agriculture, providing food for both the empire's urban centers and its rural areas. Millet and sorghum, in particular, were well suited to the semi-arid environment of the region, making them reliable sources of nutrition. These crops formed the foundation of the Wolof people's diet and were central to their agricultural practices. The cultivation of rice, especially in the river valleys, was also vital in supporting the population and enabling the Wolof to engage in trade with neighboring regions. These crops were not only consumed locally but were also exported to other parts of West Africa, forming an important aspect of the empire's agricultural trade. Livestock played an essential role in sustaining the empire's economy. Cattle, sheep, and goats were widely raised, providing not only food but also valuable commodities such as leather, wool, and hides. Livestock were integral to the Wolof way of life, symbolizing wealth and status within the society. They were also used in trade, both locally and with other empires, further enriching the Wolof state. The rivers of Senegambia were vital not just for transportation but for the provision of water to irrigate crops, particularly during the dry seasons. The Wolof, like many other West African civilizations, employed irrigation techniques to enhance agricultural productivity. This made it possible to maintain a steady supply of food, even in times of drought or other environmental challenges. The empire was rich in natural resources such as gold and salt, which were essential commodities in trade. The proximity of the Senegambia region to the trans-Saharan trade routes allowed the Wolof to access these valuable resources and export them across the empire. Gold, in particular, was an important export, contributing to the empire's wealth and enabling it to engage in lucrative trade with North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. The empire's strategic location made it a central hub in West African trade, connecting the trans-Saharan trade routes to the Atlantic world. The empire's role in the trans-Saharan trade was significant, particularly in the exchange of goods such as gold, salt, and slaves. The Senegambia region's access to the Saharan trade routes allowed the Wolof to maintain economic and cultural ties with the powerful empires of North Africa, such as the Mali and Songhai empires. One of the most important commodities in the trade network was gold, which was abundant in the region. The Wolof Empire's control over gold resources allowed it to participate in the lucrative gold trade, exchanging the precious metal for goods from the north, including salt, textiles, and Islamic books. Salt, a vital preservative and nutritional commodity, was in high demand throughout West Africa, and the Wolof Empire served as a key player in its distribution across the region. The empire also played a significant role in the slave trade, both within Africa and across the Atlantic. Slaves were used in agricultural production, domestic labor, and as soldiers, contributing to the empire's workforce. The Wolof controlled key trade routes that led from the interior to the coast, where they could engage in trade with European merchants who were establishing footholds along the West African coast. The empire's involvement in the slave trade expanded as the demand for labor in the Americas grew, further linking the Wolof Empire to global trade networks. Beyond the trans-Saharan trade, the empire was deeply involved in the Atlantic trade network. The rise of European colonial powers in the 15th century brought new dynamics to West African commerce. The Wolof, like many West African kingdoms, began to interact with European traders, exchanging gold, ivory, and slaves for European goods such as textiles, firearms, and luxury items. These exchanges had a lasting impact on the economy of the Wolof Empire and its relationships with external powers. The Wolof's strategic position allowed them to control trade between the interior of West Africa and the coastal regions. The empire's access to both river routes and the Atlantic Ocean made it an important intermediary in the movement of goods and people across the region. The Wolof Empire facilitated the exchange of goods not only within West Africa but also with North Africa and beyond, making it a crucial part of the broader trade networks that spanned the African continent and reached into the Mediterranean world. The political structure of the Wolof Empire was characterized by a centralized monarchy at its core, with the Boer Ba Jola, King of Jola, serving as the supreme ruler. As the central authority, the Boer Ba Jola held paramount power over the empire, directing both the military and the civil administration. The Boer Ba Jola was seen not only as the political leader but also as the spiritual head of the Wolof state, providing a connection between the terrestrial and divine realms. This religious role helped to solidify his authority, as the ruler was believed to possess a special link to the gods, making his reign sacrosanct. The social structure of the Wolof Empire was hierarchical and complex, shaped by a blend of traditional African customs and the influence of Islam. This social stratification was organized into distinct groups or castes, each with specific roles and responsibilities within Wolof society. The caste system included the Jewel, nobles, Tietos, warriors, Ndiadiane, artisans, as well as other important social classes that maintained the societal order and cultural integrity of the empire. At the top of the Wolof social hierarchy were the Jewel, the noble class. These individuals were typically the descendants of royal families, local rulers, or prominent political figures, and their positions were often inherited through bloodlines. The Jewel played an important role in governance, land ownership, and the management of local territories. Their authority was reinforced by their association with the ruling elite, and many held high positions within the royal court as advisors, military commanders, or administrators. As the political and military backbone of the empire, the Jewel were expected to uphold the Wolof traditions of leadership and social responsibility. The Tietos, or warrior class, held a prominent position in Wolof society. These individuals were the defenders of the empire and responsible for maintaining peace and security within their territories. The Tietos were highly respected for their martial skills and bravery, and many young men aspired to join this class in order to achieve honor and prestige. The warrior class was also essential in maintaining the empire's territorial integrity and expanding its borders through military conquest. Their influence extended beyond battlefields, as they played a central role in the social and political organization of the Wolof state, supporting the Boer Ba Jola in times of war and contributing to the empire's military strategy. The Tietos were often recruited from the broader population, especially from among the sons of nobles or influential families, and many trained in specialized military academies. They formed a cohesive and disciplined body, and their role in the society was not limited to warfare. They were also responsible for protecting the rituals and ceremonies of the empire, ensuring the safety of religious practices and the sacred spaces where the Wolof people gathered. The Ndiadiane, or artisan class, was integral to the Wolof Empire's economy and cultural development. The Ndiadiane were skilled craftsmen and laborers who specialized in a wide variety of trades, including metalworking, weaving, pottery, leatherworking, and carpentry. These artisans produced essential goods such as weapons, textiles, jewelry, and household items, many of which were traded within the empire and beyond. Their work not only served practical purposes but also contributed to the aesthetic and cultural richness of Wolof society. The artisans were generally respected for their craft, though they did not occupy the same high status as the nobles or warriors. They played a vital role in the empire's economy, as their products were integral to both domestic life and the trade networks that the Wolof Empire controlled. The craftsmanship of the Ndiadiane was especially evident in the intricate designs of textiles, pottery, and other everyday items, which reflected the cultural and religious diversity of the empire. The relationship between the Ndiadiane and other classes in Wolof society was marked by mutual respect for each role in the broader social fabric. While artisans did not wield the political or military power that the nobles or warriors enjoyed, their contributions to the cultural life of the empire were indispensable. Art and music played a crucial role in preserving the history, values, and traditions of the Wolof Empire. The Wolof people have a rich cultural heritage that is deeply intertwined with oral traditions, music, and visual arts. One of the most important institutions in this cultural landscape was the griot, a class of historians, poets, and musicians who preserved the history of the empire through oral storytelling and songs. The griots, known as Jali in the Wolof language, were the traditional keepers of history and culture. They served as the empire's storytellers, passing down genealogies, historical events, and moral lessons through song, poetry, and prose. Griots were highly respected in Wolof society for their ability to memorize and recount the history of the Wolof people, including the exploits of past rulers, battles, and significant cultural practices. The griots were often employed by noble families and kings to document the lineage and achievements of their ancestors. Their music and stories were central to ceremonies, festivals, and public gatherings, where they would perform to celebrate important events such as the ascension of a new ruler, marriages, or military victories. These performances were not only meant to entertain but also to educate the people about the values of the Wolof society, such as honor, loyalty, and the importance of unity. The griots were known for their mastery of traditional instruments, including the kora, a stringed instrument, the balafon, a wooden percussion instrument, and the djembe, a drum. The rhythms and melodies created by griots were essential to the religious and ceremonial life of the empire, linking music to the spiritual and social practices of the Wolof people. Music and oral traditions. The Wolof Empire was also known for its flourishing of visual arts. The empire's artisans were highly skilled in producing vibrant artwork that reflected the cultural values and beliefs of the Wolof people. Sculptures, carvings, and paintings were created for both religious and secular purposes. The most notable art forms included wood carvings, masks, and textiles. These objects often featured intricate patterns and symbols that had deep spiritual significance and were used in religious rituals, court ceremonies, and festivals. One of the most prominent features of Wolof art was its symbolism. For example, many pieces of artwork depicted themes of fertility, power, and protection, which were central to the Wolof worldview. Religious sculptures, such as representations of the gods and ancestors, were placed in shrines or temples to honor deities and spirits. These works of art were believed to possess a spiritual power, and they played a vital role in the religious practices of the Wolof people. Religion in the Wolof Empire was a syncretic blend of Islamic and indigenous spiritual practices, reflecting the diversity of beliefs that characterized the empire. While the Wolof people gradually adopted Islam following the expansion of Islamic influence in West Africa, many retained elements of their traditional religious practices, resulting in a rich and diverse spiritual landscape. By the 14th century, Islam had begun to spread through the Sahelian region, and the Wolof people were gradually introduced to the teachings of the Quran. Islam was first adopted by the urban elite and traders in the coastal cities, and over time it became more integrated into the Wolof Empire. Islamic practices, such as the daily prayers, fasting during Ramadan, and the Hajj pilgrimage, were embraced by many Wolof rulers and their courts. At the same time, the Wolof people maintained their traditional beliefs in animism and ancestor worship, which involved the reverence of spirits, deities, and ancestral figures. These beliefs were deeply rooted in the culture of the Wolof and influenced many aspects of daily life. The Wolof practiced rituals aimed at maintaining harmony between humans and the spirit world, including the use of charms, divination, and offerings to ancestral spirits. The fusion of Islam and indigenous beliefs created a distinct religious identity within the Wolof Empire. Many Wolof people practiced a form of Islam that was integrated with local traditions, known as Sufism. This syncretic religious system allowed for the coexistence of Islamic teachings with traditional Wolof spiritual practices, creating a unique religious culture in the empire. Religious leaders, known as marabouts, played an important role in guiding the spiritual lives of the Wolof people, and they often acted as intermediaries between the people and the divine. The Wolof Empire's agricultural base was diverse, with staple crops such as millet, sorghum, maize, and rice being grown in the fertile plains and river valleys. Millet and sorghum, in particular, were well suited to the climate and soil of the region, serving as the primary food sources for both the rural and urban populations. Rice cultivation, particularly along the riverbanks, also played an important role in the economy, especially in the wetland areas where irrigation techniques were utilized. In addition to crop production, livestock farming was a significant part of Wolof agriculture. Cattle, goats, sheep, and chickens were raised for both their meat and milk, which formed an essential part of the Wolof diet. Cattle, in particular, were a status symbol, and their ownership was a sign of wealth and prestige. The importance of livestock in Wolof society was also reflected in religious and cultural practices, with animals being used in sacrifices and ceremonies to honor ancestors and deities. Agriculture was not only a means of sustenance but also a way to generate wealth. Surplus crops and livestock were traded both within the empire and across its borders, contributing to the economic interactions with neighboring states and empires. The agricultural economy was thus a key foundation that allowed the Wolof Empire to thrive for centuries, providing the necessary resources to sustain its urban centers and support its political and military ambitions. The Wolof Empire was deeply connected to the trans-Saharan trade routes, which linked the West African empires to North Africa and the Middle East. The Wolof traded valuable commodities such as gold, salt, ivory, and kola nuts, which were highly sought after in both the Saharan and Mediterranean markets. These goods, transported across the desert by caravans, were exchanged for textiles, spices, and other luxury items from the Mediterranean and the Arab world. This overland trade facilitated not only the exchange of goods but also the flow of ideas, including Islamic culture, which gradually became an influential aspect of Wolof society. The empire's control over trade routes that passed through the Senegal River allowed the Wolof to access a range of resources from the interior of West Africa, including gold from the Bambouk and Bur goldfields, which were vital to their wealth. The gold trade, in particular, helped to elevate the Wolof Empire as a powerful regional player in the global economy. Equally important to the Wolof Empire was its maritime trade network, which extended along the Atlantic coast. The Wolof were active in trading with Europeans, particularly the Portuguese, who arrived along the West African coast in the late 15th century. The Portuguese established trading posts on the coast, and the Wolof, in turn, supplied them with gold, ivory, and slaves in exchange for European goods, including firearms, textiles, and alcohol. This early contact with European traders marked the beginning of a long-standing trade relationship that would later be dominated by the Atlantic slave trade. The Wolof also participated in regional maritime trade with other West African kingdoms and states along the coast. They traded in fish, salt, cotton, and textiles, with coastal cities like Dakar and St. Louis becoming important commercial centers. The combination of overland and maritime trade allowed the Wolof to amass great wealth, which funded their military expeditions, supported the royal court, and helped to sustain the cultural and religious institutions of the empire. One of the primary factors contributing to the empire's internal struggles was the issue of royal succession. Like many pre-colonial African states, the Wolof Empire faced frequent disputes over who would succeed the king, or Boer Ba Jola. The position of Boer was often contested, with rival factions within the royal family vying for control of the throne. These succession crises were exacerbated by the empire's decentralized political structure, where local rulers, or Diember, had significant power in their respective regions, often defying the central authority of the Boer. The lack of a clear and unchallenged system of succession led to infighting, weakening the political cohesion of the empire and diverting attention from external threats. The Wolof Empire's vast territory, made up of various ethnic groups and polities, was prone to local uprisings. These uprisings were often fueled by discontent with the central government, particularly in the wake of succession disputes and economic difficulties. Regions such as Kayr, Bayol, and Sine, which had historically been part of the empire, began to chafe under Wolof domination and occasionally rebelled. The decentralization of power, while allowing for some local autonomy, also meant that the Boer had limited control over distant provinces. As these regions began to assert their own authority, the empire's unity began to erode. Economic hardship also played a role in the empire's decline. The Wolof Empire's economy was based largely on agriculture, trade, and tribute from subordinate kingdoms, but the disruptions caused by internal conflicts and external pressures severely affected the empire's prosperity. The decline of trans-Saharan trade routes, which had been vital for the empire's wealth, combined with diminishing agricultural yields, led to widespread economic difficulties. This economic stagnation fueled discontent among the population and further undermined the empire's stability. The legacy of the Wolof Empire is undeniable, stretching across centuries and influencing not only the Senegambia region but also global history. Through its contributions to language, art, music, and governance, the Wolof Empire left a mark on modern Senegalese identity. The empire's participation in trans-Saharan and transatlantic trade routes further embedded its significance in world history, with lasting impacts on African diaspora communities around the globe. The Wolof Empire's story is a testament to the resilience of African civilizations and their enduring cultural, political, and economic legacies.